Good morning. Welcome to, I believe this is episode 9, but we're going to call it episode 1 of the True Podcast. This video is definitely going to be my longest. It's probably going to sit around an hour and a half, maybe a little bit longer than that. I'm going to do a deep dive into all 10 of my top quarterbacks in the upcoming draft. This is my official start to the scouting of the 2021 draft prospects. I want to do 10 quarterbacks. I want to break down 10 running backs, 10 receivers, 5 offensive tackles, 5 offensive guards, 5 centers, and then go to D-line, 5-5 for interior and exterior. Edge rushers, I don't know if I want to do 5 or 10. Linebackers, I want to do 5 inside linebackers, 5 outside linebackers. Corners, I'll probably do 10, and safeties, I'll probably do 5. I'll probably do 10, 5 strong safeties, 5 free safeties. But for quarterbacks, I got my top 10. Before we start, if you want to check it out, I doubt you can see it's pouring snow outside. I think it's Winter Storm Otaro. It starts with an O. I'm not positive on what it's called, but it's hitting right now and it's hitting hard. So I decided, hey, I finished my quarterbacks. I'm ready to do a deep dive. If you can't watch this entire video, don't worry about it. I'm going to break each one of them down into their own video. But for this one, it's going to be a long, extended version of every single quarterback. I haven't decided. I think I'm going to start with my quarterback 1 and go to 10. It's pretty obvious who my quarterback 1 will be, just like everybody else's is. So let's just get into it. Quarterback 1 is going to be my shortest one because it's very easy to watch Trevor Lawrence play. Who is my quarterback 1? And I believe every single draft analyst does have Trevor Lawrence as their QB1. I don't get why you wouldn't. Easily going to be the first overall pick in the draft. Urban Meyers can't make this mistake and not pick him. So let's go into his draft profile. Stats from the 2020 season, he threw for 3,153 passing yards on 69.2% completion rate, 24 passing touchdowns, and only 5 interceptions. Rushing-wise, an underrated part of his game, he had put up 203 yards on 68 attempts with 8 rushing touchdowns. Now, that also includes his kneels to end games or end the half. So probably take out 15 to 20 of those rushing attempts, so more like 45 rushing attempts for 203 yards and 8 rushing touchdowns. Pretty good. He would miss 2 games this year due to COVID versus Boston College and Notre Dame. Clemson would go 1-1 of those games, beating Boston College but losing Notre Dame. He finished his entire college career, 3 years of starting at Clemson, at 38-2 in the games that he did play in. One loss coming to LSU in the national championship in 2019, and the other one was Ohio State in the Sugar Bowl. But I wouldn't put that loss to Ohio State on him anyways, because he had 400 passing yards and 2 touchdowns, and a late game interception, which, they were already down by a ton. I think that was his last throw altogether, ended the game. So, consensus, Trevor Lawrence, number 1 overall pick. Jacksonville could be making a huge mistake, biggest mistake ever in the draft, not taking Trevor Lawrence here. The only other maybe would be like when, I don't know, who, I guess like in drafts wise, maybe this mistake would be something like Sam Bowie before Michael Jordan, or back in like 84 when Green Bay took that lineman out of Michigan instead of like the 3 Hall of Famers behind him. This would be a huge mistake to not pick him. He's generational talent. I was lucky enough to be able to watch Andrew Luck's final year at Stanford in 2011 before he would go first overall in 2012 draft. And I would say that I thought Trevor Lawrence, in his best year, which I thought was his junior year, outperformed Luck's final year, which I believe that Andrew Luck's final year was his best year. I think he's the best quarterback prospect since some say Andrew Luck. I'm going to go with Peyton Manning, and some other people will go with John Elway. I think those are like the top 4 in which people look at and be like, wow, their games are insane. They play amazing, and there's nothing really like for them to need to work on in order to go to the pros. So there's just so much upside to Lawrence. He has great accuracy from short passes to deep passes and everything in between. He has underrated mobility and athleticism. His pocket awareness was top tier ever since freshman year. He reads defenses very well. He understands them at a much higher level than all other college quarterbacks do. And if you want to see a play where not only he reads the defense very well, but also unloads a beautiful deep ball, go watch the 67-yard touchdown versus Notre Dame in the ACC Championship. Just like I said, he can unload it. He's got top tier arm strength. His footwork is clean on his 3-step and 5-step dropbacks. At Clemson, he never did any 7-step dropbacks, so we haven't really seen that. But I doubt it'll be any different since his 3-step and 5-steps are so good. Now, he has the ideal size of a quarterback, 6'6", 220. Peyton Manning came in at 6'5", 230. And he has all the upsides in order to be a franchise quarterback and a top 3 quarterback for about the next 15 years, I'd say. My pro comparison is going to be Andrew Luck. They're similar sizes. They are similar passing ability. I just don't go with Peyton Manning because the running ability that Andrew Luck possessed and also the running ability Trevor Lawrence possesses, I guess. It'd be a travesty for Lawrence, or it was a travesty for Lawrence to never bring home the Heisman Trophy. Maybe that adds more fuel to the fire, and he does even better than I'm expecting. Maybe he becomes the best quarterback ever. I don't know. It'd be pretty cool to see that. We're watching one right now in Tom Brady. But plus, always something to look forward to. He's a class act off the field. Dude's a great guy in general. Hell of a leader, and just some great traits in general. Now, that was a very simple breakdown on Trevor Lawrence, and just know for the rest of the quarterbacks, the 9 after this, they're much more of a deep dive, and there's much more that goes into them because there wasn't really much to talk about. For most people who do mock drafts, they're just like, Trevor Lawrence, first overall pick, done deal. And I'm pretty much going off the same thing. Now, for quarterback 2, this is where it gets a little different for most people. I currently have Justin Fields out of Ohio State. After an amazing 2019 season, the Heisman frontrunner, and in like the preseason predictions, Justin Fields would end up not living up to like the expectations that were set for him. I'm not saying he didn't have a good season because he did. In 8 games this year for Ohio State, Fields will put up 2,100 passing yards, 22 pass touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. He would also tack on 383 rushing yards and 5 rushing touchdowns. I believe he ended up throwing within his first 3 games, he had more touchdowns than incompletions. I've never seen a quarterback do that. Ohio State would have 3 games canceled this year due to COVID, including like the main one, which is the against Michigan. So his numbers and Trevor Lawrence's numbers are a little bit wonky compared to like 2019 seasons. So I'll quick look at the 12 games that he played in 2019 because it's not fair just to look at 8 that he played in 2020. Fields will put up 3,273 passing yards, 41 pass touchdowns, and only 3 interceptions in 2019. Now, if Trevor Lawrence weren't in this class, I would say that Justin Fields would be the consensus first overall pick. I think really he could have competed for the first overall pick last year with Joe Burrow if he was eligible to enter the draft last year, but he wasn't due to having another year of eligibility before he got into the draft. Now, some strengths of his game include the following. Fields is a very accurate passer. He can make all the throws needed on the field, and he puts a lot of velocity behind the throws, and he has even better accuracy when defenders are on him. When he's under pressure, he can hit receivers in stride and allows them to make a play on the ball. He has really great mobility and can make plays out of the pocket when he needs to. And when he's forced out of the pocket, again, his accuracy only increases while on the run. Let's check out. He does have a few weaknesses. The most glaring one is going to be his decision making. When Fields is pressured, or when being pressured, that's when his decision making comes in. Fields needs to work on when to throw the ball away, or when he just sees his check down option, or just any of his safety routes, like just get the ball out of the pocket before taking a sack. I think this stems from wanting to play hero ball and always make the play. And he does know, he has the ability to always be able to make that play. It's just a better option to either throw it away or hit like the check down route. If you want to see a play like this, check out second interception versus Indiana. If you're looking for like a really bad decision, he's getting pressured, try scrambling, and then while he's scrambling, he ends up getting hit. Throws just a wobbly like duck about 12 yards up the field and just a ton of airtime under it. And Indiana defenders were just like sitting there waiting for the ball to come down. They ended up picking it off. Good part is Ohio State wide receiver Chris Olave would come down and cause a fumble and recover the ball. So Ohio State would get the ball back, but would still count towards Justin Fields' interception. The other weakness is just going to be able to adjust to the blitz. He sometimes forgets what his fundamentals are with his footwork and his mechanics on his throwing when he sees extra guys rushing in. That's only really whenever he doesn't recognize the blitz. When he does see it coming, his accuracy always says pinpoint. But if he does not recognize that they're sending extra defenders, and that's something that they're going to have to work on in the pros, because many defensive coordinators are extremely talented at sending these blitz packages where you don't know who's coming. For my pro comparison for Justin Fields, I'm going to be going with Dak Prescott. Dak stands in at 6'2", 235, while Fields is 6'3", 228. Both have a great arm strength and an incredibility of throwing the ball with accuracy. Both also have that underlying athletic ability to hit the open field as a runner, but neither are going to use that for the first option. They're always going to be looking downfield to their top targets, and especially going for those deep balls. I believe in the draft, I think the Atlanta Falcons will end up with Justin Fields, but I do think that they're going to have to trade up to the second overall pick for him. I believe the Jets will play the game of, hey, we might take him, and I don't think you want to lose out on your future quarterback. Same way that in 2017, the 49ers played with the same game with the Bears. They're like, hey, Mitchell Trubisky's on the board. He's easily going to be the best quarterback in this draft. You know that. Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson. No, Mitchell Trubisky. So the Bears would end up trading like two second rounders and a third rounder to move up one spot. And San Francisco wasn't even going to go with him. They went with Solomon Thomas. But that was just to make sure that the Bears got their franchise quarterback, who won't even be on the team next year. And I think that brand new Atlanta Falcons general manager, Terry Fontenot, will want to make a splash with his first pick. And new head coach for the Atlanta Falcons is going to want someone to build around. All right. Now, sorry, I'll probably be taking a good bit of water breaks. This is going to be a long episode, so I need to clear my throat. Quarterback number 3, Zach Wilson, BYU. After 2 less than impressive seasons in his freshman and sophomore year at Brigham Young University, including an 11 touchdown, 9 interception sophomore season, Wilson's future was kind of in question on what he wanted to do. He then came out and would light up the field his junior year. He put up 3,692 passing yards, 33 pass touchdowns, and only had 3 interceptions. This doesn't include his 10 rushing touchdowns that he also had during his junior year. His only lost season would come to a 22-17 loss to the 14th ranked Coastal Carolina game, which ended with the BYU wide receiver being tackled just a few yards short of the game-winning touchdown on the last play of the game. He ended up leading BYU to the Boca Raton Bowl and had a victory over UCF 3 weeks later. Some people have Zach Wilson and Justin Fields flip-flop for 2 and 3. I think the main reason I have it as Fields 2 and Wilson 3 is because Fields has shown his skills for 2 years now, while Wilson struggled his sophomore year but came out and had a fantastic junior year. I think Wilson has a ton of upsides. Just like Fields, Wilson has an amazing arm. He can make every throw from sideline to sideline and end zone to end zone. He is accurate and twitchy with his throws. He just keeps it moving. He keeps his eyes down the field and scans the field well. When he finds an open receiver, he will not miss that throw. I believe he had 99.5% completion rate when the receiver didn't have anybody like around them within 8 yards. But then I think like his one incompletion came with a drop. But that's not saying that Wilson isn't afraid to throw it in traffic, because he's incredibly accurate when he does. He knows how to put it right in tight windows, and his playmaking ability as a runner is also there. He's able to catch defenses off guard when tucking it and taking off. This is something I want to quickly talk about this, like the running ability of quarterbacks. This is something that I expect nearly every quarterback over the next 10 to 15 years to have to their game, that rushing ability, or really just the ability to get out of the pocket and tuck it when they need to. The idea of being solely a pocket passer, like the Mannings, Phillip Rivers, Tom Brady, Drew Brees, I think it's over. There's these kids nowadays, not even kids, young adults, are just way too athletic to not have that rushing ability tucked in their sleeve. It opens up the field for the team and really allows them to have another dimension to their game. Now, they don't need to be Lamar Jackson or Kyler Murray and have that top-tier speed, but they need to be athletic enough to get out of the pocket and take off on 3rd and 5 and 3rd and 6, pick up the first down. For weaknesses for Zach Wilson, there's a few. The first being his level of competition that he did play. This year, he came out, he would only play 2 games against teams with winning records when he matched up against them, and would lose one of them, that being the Coastal Carolina game. The other one was a win over the 6-4 UCF team in the Boca Raton Bowl. Everyone else they played that he would have beat did not have a winning record when playing them. He did play the same teams last 2 years and performed really poorly against them. And I think that might be a scare for most of the scouts in the league, that his skills won't translate to the NFL pros. That's not something I worry about too much, competition-wise, because you don't look in quarterbacks and you're like, hey, he's not playing like great defenders. If he can make a pass and it's pinpoint accuracy, like right in the numbers, it doesn't matter where a defender is on that, whether he's like right on top of the wide receiver or if he's 5 yards behind him. If the pass is on target, the pass is going to be on target no matter who's there. Now the other one is going to be his accuracy sometimes takes a dip when he tends to be hit with pressure, and that's something he needs to work on and develop over the next year or so. And I think with a quarterback quality coach in the NFL, he'll be able to do. My pro comparison is going to be a lesser Aaron Rodgers. I think Matt Miller, NFL draft analyst, has the exact same comparison. I don't expect him to ever play up to Aaron Rodgers' level, or honestly even close to that. Rodgers is in the debate for the most skilled quarterback of all time, and it's going to be really difficult to match that. I just think with his twitchy throwing ability, his pocket presence, and how he has that little mobility factor, Zach Wilson's is a lot better than Aaron Rodgers, but he knows when to take off. It kind of looks like rookie season Aaron Rodgers out of Cal, and when he sat behind Brett Favre. With the recent, all right. So originally, when I wrote out who I mocked him to. I originally had him being drafted to the Detroit Lions, but recent news came out that Detroit Lions would trade Matthew Stafford for Jared Goff, 2 first-round picks, and a third-round pick with the Rams. Originally, I had Zach Wilson going to Detroit, and I was going to say that Dan Campbell is just got a new 6-year deal, and I think with the new young talent that Zach Wilson and the running back group and new wide receivers because Marvin Jones Jr. and Kenny Golladay are both free agents. I don't think they'll stay. That they were going to bring someone in to give Dan Campbell a chance to take over and really build his own team. Honestly, I'm going to keep it the same way. I still think that they will draft Zach Wilson here. I think he has more upside than Jared Goff does. And I think that after 2 years, in 2023, they're going to be able to cut Jared Goff, and they will not have a huge, I think it'll be like a 11 million hit to the cap. I don't think they'll really care about that. And I think they're just going to develop Zach Wilson. I think he'll have a chance to maybe not play this year, but he'll definitely have a chance to play next year. Maybe he will play this year. I don't know. They might have a quarterback competition with Jared Goff in the offseason. But I think that he will end up in Detroit either way. Now on to QB number 4, which is going to be Trey Lance out of North Dakota State University. I think that he's the most mysterious quarterback coming up in the upcoming draft. For starters, he would only end up playing one game this year, and that was against Central Arkansas. The sole purpose of this game was so NFL scouts could watch Trey Lance play, along with other North Dakota State University players who were considered for the draft. Now, in this game, Lance put up 149 passing yards, 2 pass touchdowns, and his first ever college career interception. On the ground, Lance would also put up 143 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. Now, I want to check out stats from 2019 because he actually got a full season in, total of 16 games, which was a lot for a college team, but plays in the FCS, which is the championship series. So it's kind of like a playoff scenario with college teams compared to the Power 5 with their bowl games. Now, in the 16 games that Lance would play, he would put up 2,786 passing yards, 28 pass touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. That's not only an FCS record, but also looked into it, FBS record, overall Division I college football record for most touchdowns in a season without an interception. Incredible season passing-wise, and that doesn't mean he didn't also have other great parts because on the ground, Lance would break the 1K mark with 1,100 rushing yards and 14 rushing touchdowns, 42 total touchdowns that year. He would lead that 2019 North Dakota State University team to a 16-0 record and a 28-20 victory over James Madison in the FCS championship. It does help that this North Dakota State University team is considered the powerhouse of the FCS roster skill-wise. For Trey Lance, there's quite a few strengths to his game. For starts, he's an outstanding athlete. He has a running ability. Out of the top 10 quarterbacks in the draft, I would say that he has the best running ability out of all of them. And what's different with him is he's a downfield runner. He doesn't mind putting his head down to gain a few extra yards. And what helps is his 6'4", 226 frame. He has that prototypical quarterback size. Also has a really powerful arm. It really looks effortlessly if you watch him throw. Doesn't have to put a lot under it to get 40-plus yards of air time. The velocity on his throws are great too, and he can really fit in tight windows with the speed he puts behind the ball. Another strength I looked at is his decision-making. He knows when to throw the ball away, or just his check-down routes. He avoids those turnover-worthy plays and doesn't like to play superhero ball because he doesn't need to. You can see why with his old decision-making on his 0 interceptions last year, and it's only 1 this year, but it was a great play by the cornerback, read the route. He's a smart kid on and off the field. Not even a kid. I don't know why I'm saying that. He's an adult, just like every other quarterback. Everyone's like 21 plus. I don't know what I'm saying. So Smart young adult on and off the field. I did read an article about some of the stuff he did off the field while the pandemic was going on. He held Bible studies over Zoom. He visited local children's hospitals every week during the pandemic, and he would go to like local elementary schools and read to them. So that's really just a character trait, and you want in a person, just being like a great guy in general, whether he's playing football or not. It's just something that you want. A quote from Lance was that football is not who I am, but what I do. I'm obviously going to put everything into it because that's what I love. But at the end of the day, I think God put that in my plans to use as my platform. So he does have his commitment to football, but just in general, he has his commitment is on football right now. Now, there are a few things that Lance will have to work on if he does want his game to translate to the professional level. For starters, his accuracy takes an enormous dip when hit with pressure. That's something that a few of these top quarterbacks need to work on. In the only game that he played this year, when Central Arkansas got to Lance, as I was watching, he would attempt to move in and out of the pocket, and he would often overthrow his receivers and the defenders when the defenders are like in his face. Another part of overthrowing receivers is that he will put way too much under his throws on like deep routes. He's shown glimpses of having that pinpoint deep ball accuracy, but at times his arm strength is just too good for him, or too good for his own, or too much for his own good. There was a play against Central Arkansas. Defender slipped, cornerback slipped on the left side of the field, wide receiver wide open. All Lance had to do was just pretty much lob it up. Like he had all the time in the world to just get to his receiver. Just put enough airtime for his receiver to get to it. And instead, Lance tried to make a play and lead him on and really make it look like he was the perfect pass when he didn't need to. He ended up overthrowing his receiver by about 6 yards, and there wasn't even a defender within 10 yards of that wide receiver. Another one is a minor detail, but it would be his footwork while in the pocket. His wide base that he has when throwing the ball often leads to overthrowing or overextending his targets. You can see that on some of like the slant routes or like in routes, out routes. Sometimes that wide base just gets to him and he ends up just putting a few yards out. The final one is going to be his competition level. Lance plays in the FCS. So, but again, the same way I pointed out earlier, not really a worry for me competition-wise, but something that scouts might look at. He plays in the FCS, so really it's the second subdivision of Division I college football. There's a pretty large gap between the competition of FCS schools and the Power 5 schools. And even if that Power 5 being Big 10, Big 12, Pac-12, SEC, ACC, if you didn't know. There's a large gap between the competition of FCS schools and the Power 5 schools, and even if the competition was close, Lance, to no fault of his own, it's not his reason, he can't like control it. North Dakota State is easily the best roster in the FCS, and it has been for years. So he easily has like the best players to throw to in the FCS and the best line. It's just like the main place for college players who don't make it to Power 5 schools to go. For my pro comparison, I'm going to go with rookie year Josh Allen, not MVP candidate Josh Allen this year. Both have large frames, both standing about 6'5". 6'4" for Lance, 6'5" for Allen. Allen is a little taller than Lance, as I said, but both were known for the rocket of an arm, but questionable accuracy. Both are downfield runners and don't mind taking a hit if it helps the team. If Lance pans out the same way Josh Allen did with the right coaching, you could be looking at another top quarterback in the NFL right here. All depends on the coaching staff that he gets with and what they do with his accuracy. Now, here's where I'm stuck. I think there are three teams that can make a move for Trey Lance. The first is going to be the Carolina Panthers with the 8th overall pick. Their offense isn't horrible. They rank 23rd overall, 18 passing and 21 rushing. But Teddy Bridgewater isn't the answer. He wasn't the reason their offense ranked like this. I think he was actually what was holding them back. Matt Rule here could take Trey Lance and do the same thing that Ron Rivera did with Cam Newton just a few years ago. Really 5 years ago, 2015. They were 15-1 in the Super Bowl. They both have similar play styles with just a big overall body, big arm, and their running ability. So just bring that kind of energy back to Carolina. Now, second team I'm looking at is going to be the Dallas Cowboys with the 10th overall pick. This all depends on what happens to Dak Prescott. Does Jerry Jones give him $45 million a year coming back from a broken ankle? I saw reports, not the most reliable source, so I'm not going to say they're true or anywhere near true. But I saw reports that they were going to offer Dak Prescott a 5-year, $175 million contract. Again, I don't believe the source, so take it with a grain of salt. Maybe this is the first time that he's right, but he just the source coming, I forget his name, but he just got exposed for saying that Deshaun Watson wasn't going to show up to OTAs, but then Deshaun Watson's agent responded to him on Twitter. It was like, yes, he will. Don't believe this guy. So that's why I don't want to say the source is reliable because he's not. But I've seen him say the 175 million. Or does Jerry Jones go with a younger quarterback with a different play style? Lance is a project. They're going to have to work with him in order for him to pan out. And does Mike McCarthy have the skill set for them to do that? I'm not positive. I'm trying to think who's the offensive coordinator for Dallas. Is it Kellen? Kellen Moore? I think it's Kellen Moore is the offensive coordinator. So maybe he can work with him. I know Mike McCarthy does not have that type of skill set to be able to do that. My final team is going to be the New England Patriots, but they selected 15, so I think they'll have to trade up in order to get him. And I just don't see Belichick doing that, especially after seeing how the Cam Newton experiment went this year. It went last year, and how bringing in another player with the same play style may not work out well, but the coaching to develop Lance is there. So if they want to pick him up, I'm sure they'll be able to work with him pretty well. But quarterback number 5, I'm going to go ahead and go with Mac Jones out of Alabama. For my 5th quarterback slot, I chose Jones over Kyle Trask. That's a little bit of a thing that some people may switch on, but I believe that Mac Jones has more skill set than Kyle Trask does. Now, I want to preface on the fact that if this were a tier list and I was ranking them based on tiers and putting them in the same groups, I'd have a single tier for Trevor Lawrence, easily best prospect this year. And then another tier down would be Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, and Trey Lance. And then another tier down is where I put Mac Jones and Kyle Trask. I think there's a pretty large skill gap between these levels on the tier list, especially between the first 4 quarterbacks and the ones who follow. Now, Jones would take over the Crimson Tide quarterback position after future Dolphins first-round pick, 5th overall last year. Tua Tagovailoa would go down with a season-ending injury in the 2nd week. In 11 games that Mac Jones played in, he would play a very game manager role for the overpowered Crimson Tide, throwing for 1,503 passing yards, 14 touchdowns, and only 3 interceptions. The question was, after a full offseason of working with the starters, would Mac Jones be able to sufficiently lead this Alabama team to an average season for Alabama, which, if you don't know, consists of usually about 12 to 13 wins and a national championship. Just classic Nick Saban. Well, if you check out Mac Jones' stats in 2020, he did a pretty good job. He started all 13 games. He would complete 311 of his 402 passes, had a 77.4% completion rate, that being the highest in the SEC with a minimum of 300 passes, 4,500 passing yards, which was the highest in the SEC this year and second all time, only behind Joe Burrow last year with 5,400, I think. 41 passing touchdowns. Again, highest in the SEC, or second highest in the SEC, actually. This finished second behind Kyle Trask's 43, and would only have 4 interceptions this year, which, one of the best, I believe it was the best this year of a interception to touchdown ratio. He wrapped the season up with Alabama going 13-0 and a national championship, so did hit that Nick Saban classic year. Jones would finish the season in 3rd place in Heisman voting, only behind Trevor Lawrence and teammate and eventual winner Devontae Smith. You'd think these type of numbers, amazing year, Mac Jones would be the best quarterback prospect in the draft. And although he isn't that, there are things that Mac Jones does incredibly well. For starters, his football intelligence is off the charts. I think he makes all the right choices while on the field. He understands Alabama's playbook, and within one offseason, I think he mastered it. Nick Saban runs a West Coast offense, and Mac Jones made it seem like he's been working in this system with Nick Saban for 10 plus years. Another thing to look at is his great accuracy. You saw that in his completion percentage, but also his passes were on point, and he makes really all the throws, and he always hits the receivers in the numbers when targeting them at that position. But when he needs to lead his receivers on and allow them to gain some more yards, he can do that too. He often throws to the first option who's open, so he gets the ball out of the pocket fast. He doesn't have to worry about the pass rush coming in, disrupting the play. Another thing to look at is his extreme success against the top college competition in the SEC. There wasn't a game this season that I thought he struggled. He played in, again, the toughest Power 5 conference, being the SEC, and played well against top 10 ranked teams, Florida, Georgia, and Texas A&M. He would also have a good game against a good Auburn defense. And when he went up against teams not from the SEC, that being the 4th ranked Notre Dame, Fighting Irish and third-ranked Ohio State Buckeyes in the playoffs, he played like he was the best quarterback in the best quarterback in the draft this year. Now, there are a few things to harp on Mac Jones' games. The few negatives that people are going to take away. The first is going to be, what is the reason behind all of this success? Really, the reason behind all of Alabama's quarterback success. Is it because of the skill players around him? For starters, receiving options, easily best in the country. Heisman winner Devontae Smith, first wide receiver to win it since Howard in Michigan. And then, that's wrong. Howard is a cornerback. I don't even know why I said that. First wide receiver in, I believe, 30 or so years. It was in the 80s, late 80s when the last wide receiver won it. Maybe it was Howard. Maybe he was a dual threat. Maybe he was a cornerback and a wide receiver. Other ways, get that out of the way. Jalen Waddle, he did only play like 4 games this year, but I think he's easily a top 3. Some people have him as the one of best wide receivers in the draft. You had best sophomore wide receiver in the college football atmosphere in John Mechie III, and of course you have Najee Harris coming out of the backfield. Alabama also had the best offensive line in all of college football, with 3 of their starters this year being mocked as first-round draft picks in the next year's draft, like Alex Leatherwood being one of them. It's really a blessing and a curse for Mac Jones here because, sadly, yes, he will put up the best stat line out there, but people are always going to point out, hey, so much star power on the Alabama roster, you're not the one doing the work. Next negative is going to come from the athletic ability on the field for Mac Jones. He's not a runner. He won't be. He doesn't escape the pocket, and he definitely won't leave the pocket on purpose. He might shrug off a tackle here and there when being pressured, but sacks will come. His arm strength is another question. It's not horrible, but it's not equal to what the top 4 quarterbacks in the draft provide. He can make almost all the throws, but there are a few deep throws, like really outside the numbers with the defender close by, that top players in the pros can make that he's going to have to really work on if he wants to hit those. Now, the final point is to worry about Mac Jones is, will he become a game manager like many other Alabama quarterbacks have become? A.J. McCarron being one. You got, I wouldn't say Tua Tagovailoa yet, but it definitely didn't look good ending the year. He didn't look great. But quarterbacks coming out of Alabama don't always pan out well. Now, I'll be using some statistic here from an article written by Chris Trapasso on January 14th, where he points out that Mac Jones had 34.1% of his throws to pass catchers being at or behind the line of scrimmage. This was the largest out of the 10 quarterbacks that were selected in the last 2 years, or first round of the last 2 years draft, and prospects that are supposed to be drafted in the first round of this year. So the last 3 years, he has the highest rate of throws being at or behind the line of scrimmage. Now, Jones' yardage counts benefit from the skills that his receiving options do have and their yards after catch ability. Another stat shows that 53.5% of Mac Jones' 4,500 passing yards do come from the yards after the catch. That's not like a super high number if you look at it. Joe Burrow had like 46%, and you see Joe Burrow panned out pretty well. Now, my pro comparison is going to be Kirk Cousins for the Vikings. Washington football team, Redskins at the time. When he did get drafted, Cousins came in the league at 6'3", 202, while Mac Jones comes in at 6'3", 214. They have really remarkable similar sizes. Both options were known for their accuracy, their football intelligence, and their leadership as they came out of college. Michigan State for Kirk Cousins. Neither have top-tier arm strength or mobility, and both have worries of not panning out and becoming a game manager or a backup quarterback in the NFL. Well, Kirk panned out extremely well. A few years ago, signed an $88 million completely guaranteed contract with the Minnesota Vikings, and I do expect Mac Jones to do the same, not with the contract, but do the same of panning out if he gets in the right system and the right coaching staff. From a mock draft, like many others, I have the New England Patriots picking up Mac Jones as the 15th overall pick. The Cam Newton experiment, over in New England. Not going to happen again. And Bill Belichick shows that he works better with a quarterback who can understand playbook extremely well and make the passes he needs to. That is what Mac Jones will provide. Next quarterback number 6, Kyle Trask out of Florida. Now, originally, I had Trask at 5 and Mac Jones at 6. I thought that Trask's game had a better chance of panning out in the NFL than Mac Jones' game does. But after reviewing tape on both quarterbacks, I have changed my mind and now put Mac Jones ahead of Kyle Trask. Trask would take over for the Florida Gators back in 2019, the third game of the season, due to then starter Felipe Frank suffering a season-ending injury. After Trask did take over in 2019 and the starting position, Frank would leave the Gators and would enter the transfer portal, where he would end up landing with the Arkansas Razorbacks, another quarterback prospect in this draft. For starters, let's check out some stats from 2020. Kyle Trask put up Heisman quality numbers in the, I guess you could say, regular season. In the 12 games he played this year, Trask would throw for 4,283 yards, 43 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions. The 4,283 passing yards would be second most in the SEC, only behind Mac Jones with 4,500 passing yards, but he would lead the SEC in passing touchdowns. The 4,283 passing yards is also third most all time in SEC, only behind Mac Jones and Joe Burrow. Now, Trask would end up as a Heisman finalist, finishing fourth place, receiving 61 first place votes, 164 second place, and 226 third place votes. He would only be beat out by Mac Jones, Trevor Lawrence, and eventual winner Devontae Smith. The Heisman voting does take place before bowl games, but really, what could go wrong for Kyle Trask? Before the Cotton Bowl, Trask was considered the third-ranked quarterback behind Fields and Lawrence. And then the Florida Gators would go play the Oklahoma Sooners in the Cotton Bowl, and by the 4:09 mark in the first quarter, Kyle Trask would be benched after throwing 14 for 28 passes, 0 touchdowns, 158 passing yards, and 3 interceptions. And these were bad interceptions. These were horrible. Poorly thrown balls, especially the one in the end zone, threw it right into the defender's hands. Receiver had no chance of catching it. The only excuse, I guess you could make Kyle Trask, is he was missing his top 4 targets, that being Kadarius Toney, predicted first-round pick, Trevon Grimes, Jacob Copeland, predicted second or third-round pick, and the best tight end in the draft, Kyle Pitts, all who opted out before the game. Florida would end up losing 55-20, and this is what caused Kyle Trask to drop from 3rd or 4th rank to either 6th or 7th in most analyst mock draft. Well, there are positives. There's things you can look at and be like, hey, he does great. So let's check those out. For starters, Trask has pinpoint accuracy from short to middle range. When throwing within 25 yards on the line of scrimmage, Trask often hits his targets in stride and allows them to run after catch. Trask also brings a good pocket presence. He stands tall at 6'5" and has a really large frame that he uses to maneuver around the pocket. While in the pocket, Trask is constantly moving his feet. He doesn't stop chopping in order to have a quicker step when needing to step into the pocket. I noticed really 2 other positives for Kyle Trask games, or from the 4 games that I did on Kyle Trask. The first will be that his throw on the run is sufficient. I wouldn't put top tier with other quarterbacks in this draft because there's room to improve, but it's good enough to hit players down the field while on the move. He is also a smart player. He ran a lot of RPOs at Florida under Dan Mullins, and he really made the right choice most of the time. Now, there are definitely things Kyle Trask needs to work on, and the most obvious one is going to be his arm strength and his deep ball accuracy. This was a worry after his 2019 campaign, and it just doesn't look like he fixed it in the offseason or during the 2020 season. He often overthrows his receivers, or is just completely off the mark with his deep passes, and the level at which he is at right now will not translate to the pros. There are 3 more worries that I have about his throwing game. The first is going to be that he most often likes to stare down his receiving options when he throws them, especially Kyle Pitts. Now, there are design plays where the only receiver you're supposed to look at is to Kyle Pitts, and I'm sure Dan Mullen ran a few of those plays, but Trask does it way too often for a quarterback that's supposed to do it. Now, I believe that was the reason behind the majority of his interceptions this year, including the pick 6 versus Oklahoma. That was a very obvious one. And if college corners can read your eyes, NFL corners will do it every play. The second one's going to be his throws outside the numbers. Now, he struggles with these passes, even when they're at medium range, is the only part of his short and medium range where he does not excel, which falls between 10 to 25 yards. And most deep throws on the sidelines either end up out of bounds or short of the receiver. Something he's going to have to work on. And my final criticism in his passing game really differs from the majority of his draft profiles that I've read. All of them say that he plays it safe, doesn't throw turnover-worthy throws, and what they use is they say, hey, he only threw 8 interceptions this year and 7 last year. That's where I disagree. In one of the games I watched, the game versus Ole Miss, I counted Trask having 5 turnover-worthy throws. I count them as when a defensive back or a linebacker contacts the ball in an attempt to intercept it before the receiving option even has a chance to touch the ball. He throws into traffic often and with his not-so-great accuracy. If the defense would actually finish the job on a few of these picks, I think Trask would have finished this year with around 14 to 16 interceptions. Not as good as 8, I'll tell you that. Another piece of his game that hinders him is his athletic ability and his mobility. Tongue twister there. Trask is solely a pocket passer. Don't expect him to leave the pocket and scramble unless he is like completely forced to. That makes his game and the offense's game much more simpler than if he were to have the ability to get out of the pocket and move. His athletic ability also plays a role in his mobility within the pocket. At times, there are times that he maneuvers the pocket well, takes a few hits, very Ben Roethlisberger-esque, where he can get hit, get the ball out while having a defender on him. But really, those were just glimpses. He often struggles getting around the pocket with his large frame, and when he is hit, he struggles at keeping the ball and fumbles on occasion, which scouts do not like. For my pro comparison, I would say a younger Matt Ryan or Jared Goff. For Matt Ryan, coming out of Boston College, he was considered an extremely smart quarterback with great accuracy at the short medium range, just like Kyle Trask. His two questionables would be his athleticism and his deep ball, having the majority of his deep throws sail on him. Same thing with Kyle Trask. Trask frame is 6'5", 240, while Matt Ryan is 6'4", 218. So Trask does have a little bit more weight on him, allowing him to take more hits in the pocket and stuff. Matt Ryan panned out pretty well. And now he is one of the best deep balls in the NFL, even at 35 years old. Could be because his targets, like Julio Jones, Roddy White at the beginning of his career. But could be just because he worked on his skills, something that Kyle Trask needs to do. For the landing spot, I think Trask will be the 6th quarterback off the board. And I believe he'll be the first one taken in the 2nd round. Unless this team wants to trade up to somewhere like the 32nd overall pick, like the Baltimore Ravens did in 2018 for Lamar Jackson in order to pick up that 5th-year option. I expect the Pittsburgh Steelers to select Kyle Trask. They currently hold the 55th overall pick, and I think if they want to move up to about 45 in order to guarantee that he will be there, which shouldn't cost much. Maybe like a 3rd and a 6th, maybe not even that, maybe a 4th and a 6th. And you can pick up the quarterback of your future. Quarterback number 7, Jamie Newman out of Georgia or Wake Forest. It doesn't really matter which way you say it. Actually, scratch the idea that Trey Lance is the most mysterious quarterback in the 2021 draft. At least he played a game this year. That title is going to be to former Wake Forest, now Georgia Bulldog quarterback, former Georgia Bulldog quarterback too, because he was a senior, Jamie Newman. Many people forgot his name, and this is not only because he, or one of the reasons why that people don't remember him is because he didn't play this year. He opted out. He would enroll in Georgia in like September or in August and opted out at the very beginning of September. And he would not play his final year of college football at all, decided to opt out, and he would say faulting due to COVID-19 and wanting to prepare for the draft was his 2 reasons. His numbers with Georgia's weapons would most likely look great here, but instead we'll have to check out his 2019 campaign with Wake Forest, which his targets were not as great. Now, the season was no Passover season. I don't even know if that's a saying. I'm going to just say it like it is. It wasn't something to like look past. It was pretty good. Newman would end up with 2,868 passing yards, 26 passing touchdowns, and 11 interceptions. Pretty quality season, and it was enough to get the attention of Kirby Smart, coach of Georgia, who had a conversation with Newman on the idea of transferring to Georgia, as Georgia would lose their starting quarterback to the draft, Jake Fromm. Luckily, Newman would accept the invite to the 2021 Senior Bowl, going on during the week of January 24th to 29th. That was a few days ago. It was 2 days ago with Senior Bowl with all the week of practice. We had a better chance to understand, the skills that he possesses and his ability to throw, especially to other targets other than his Wake Forest targets in 2019. One thing that came out of the Senior Bowl was from Monday, which was the weigh-ins. Originally, Jamie Newman was listed at 6'4" and 245 at Wake Forest, but he would come in at 6'2", 7/8". It's really 6'3", and 235. Now, the weight loss is understandable. Didn't have a season, wasn't eating like a normal college player would, but height loss was not so much something that I was expecting. I don't think it's something to worry about, though. 6'3" is still a quarterback quality height. Now, Senior Bowl's over. I watched at practice. I think he did great. First 2 days was the best quarterback there. He sucked. He sucked in the Senior Bowl. I thought he played really poorly. I thought there just wasn't anything that was excelling in his game. He didn't look like Wake Forest Jamie Newman. He just didn't look like quarterback prospect for the NFL draft Jamie Newman. And I think missing out on that senior year is a big reason. Now, it's pretty difficult to analyze and complete this draft profile when I look back at Jamie Newman on what he has to improve on, if for going into the draft. But what I do know is some of the things that he has to work on from his film in 2019, and it leaves a good bit to be desired. maybe during the no, because I just watched him in the Senior Bowl. I like wrote down. I said maybe the year off he fixed all of his mistakes, but I don't. He didn't. He didn't. There was glaring mistakes. But before we deep dive into that, let's take a look at some of the positive of his games. The first is going to be the athletic ability that he does possess. Jamie Newman is known for for his ability to scramble and gain some yardage on the run. His run is powerful and he picks up yardage on the ground. His mobility helps him move in and out of the pocket when he needs to. He has a little bit of that Cam Newton while running. Big, powerful, and a little bit elusive here and there too. Another positive is going to be his arm ability. At the end of the 2019 season, this would be something scouts would point out as Jamie Newman's most powerful trait, and it does not look like it has changed much since then. From reports at the practices at the Senior Bowl, Monday and Tuesdays and Wednesdays, it was universally agreed on that quarterbacks at the Senior Bowl, which include Mac Jones, Ian Book, Sam Ehlinger, Kellen Mond, and Felipe Frank. Mac Jones didn't practice or play. He had an injury in his hand, but nothing to worry about. Jamie Newman did show that he had the most impressive arm strength velocity-wise. They said when the wind started kicking in, all the quarterbacks' passes were waving left and right, but Newman's were cutting through the air like hot knife to butter. They were getting right to the targets when they needed to, no matter the range of the passes. Reports also said that he had, again, impressive play both practices, but it looked like he didn't take any time off, and this was extremely surprising. And a very good sign for not only Newman but also NFL scouts. And after the Senior Bowl, now it doesn't look so good because he played horrible. I mean, it wasn't like Kyle Trask versus Oklahoma in the Cotton Bowl or anything, but like he just wasn't like accurate. Yeah, I think he played like 6 drives. I don't know. Sam Ehlinger started over him. That was a little scary. Why? Because Sam Ehlinger is like ranked 9th on mine here, and I have Jamie at 7. Now, let's look at a few of the negatives of his game. Let's start out with his actual in-game ability that he needs to work on. The first is going to be while at Wake Forest, Newman would collapse under pressure. He would forget his basic techniques. His processing would be much slower of his receivers down the field, and he just wouldn't react in enough time in order to make a play before the defense got to him. Now, reading through progressions was already a struggle for Newman while playing, and when pressure comes, that struggle just becomes a serious liability of his. The other negative I want to look out is the most obvious one, and in the year that the most quarterbacks take that step from being a good college quarterback to being pro-ready, Newman didn't play a single snap. He didn't even go to practice. Senior year is the spot where these quarterbacks refine their best skills and develop their lesser traits, the things they need to work on, in order to be a quarterback prospect that NFL scouts would look at them and think, hey, he's got what it takes. It's a year in which quarterbacks also develop football intelligence-wise. Yeah, Newman has the skills and the traits, but does he have the mindset to understand what's going on? I don't know. I don't know. It didn't look like it at the Senior Bowl. I don't know. I'm just mad because like I thought he was like a top prospect. I still think he is, but he just really played poorly after. I like watching the practices. I thought he played great, and then he just played poorly in the Senior Bowl. But like I'm not gonna. Maybe taking a year off didn't really help. For my pro comparison, I mentioned it earlier, but it's gonna be Cam Newton. Now, Jamie Newman doesn't have the same size as Cam Newton. He's a little bit smaller, a little bit shorter, but they do have similar playstyles. Both have big arms, both have that downhill running ability, and their throwing velocities are remarkably similar. The question is, for both, would be can they understand the complicated offense and be able to read defenses in the NFL when both entered the draft? That was the question. This is where they differ because Cam Newton developed that trait in his senior year at Auburn. Honestly, depending on how general managers value the Senior Bowl, Newman could slip into the first round, or he could slip out of it. I don't know. I read this before Senior Bowl, and these aren't like I didn't like write it all out. I just wrote a few like quick like things like stats and stuff I could look at. I don't know. I doubt he's gonna be in the first round now, but and I said I think he could end up being a day 3 pick if he didn't play well at the Senior Bowl, and he didn't. I think it's safe to say that he ends up going day 2 or day 3. To whom? Let's go with the Saints. All right, the New Orleans Saints. Drew Brees is retiring, and they got cap room problems that are out of the wazoo. I mean, $95.8 million in debt. How do you get there? Why not worry? They don't have to worry about paying Jameis Newman. Listen, I'm going to need a break after this one. Jameis Winston or Taysom Hill, big quarterback money, when you can take Jamie Newman and rock with his rookie contract for a few years. I think Sean Payton will be able to work with him and develop his skills into a quality NFL starter. Quarterback number 8, Kellen Mond, Texas A&M. Actually, screw that. Throw him at 7. Move Jamie Newman back to 8. All right. I thought Kellen Mond played very impressive at the Senior Bowl. I think he moved his stock up a spot. Actually, he might move it up too. Kyle Trask. Who knows? You know what? Screw it. Kellen Mond, quarterback number 6, moving Kyle Trask down to 7, and we're gonna move Jamie Newman down to 8, and we might even move Jamie Newman down to 9. All right. That's just how he performed at the Senior Bowl. I need to get off Jamie Newman. But here at 8 spot, I have Texas A&M product Kellen Mond. Now, if again we're going back to the tier list, actually screw the tier list because I should have just watched the Senior Bowl and then wrote all this. Because I said that I thought Kellen Mond would have more of a backup quarterback role in the NFL, and I thought that Kyle Trask and Jamie Newman had a chance to be a starter. Never mind. For Mond, start of 2020 season didn't look promising. He would come out week 1 and struggle greatly against a Vanderbilt team that finished season 0-9. The thing that they were most known for is having the first college football woman on their team. I don't know why I said it like that. Woman on their college football team, that being Sarah Full. Congratulations to her on being the kicker for the Vanderbilt team. That's a very impressive feat. And I thought that was very cool to see. Now, this can be credited to the fact that there was no offseason practice, but then again, Mond has been playing, and I mean actually playtime since his freshman year for Texas A&M for the past 4 years. In this game against Vanderbilt, he would throw for 189 passing yards and 1 touchdown. They did squeak out a 17-12 win. But I think the next week, which was week 2, which had Texas A&M losing 24-52 to Alabama, was his most impressive game of the year. I know it comes in a loss, so it's a little bit questionable, but he came out against one of the best defenses in college and threw 318 yards, 3 pass touchdowns, and only 1 interception. After that week 2 loss, Texas A&M would go on to not lose a single game. They would end the season 9-1 with a Capital One Orange Bowl victory over North Carolina, and they'd finish the season ranked 5th in college football rankings. A lot of people wanted them in the college football playoffs over Notre Dame, who finished 4th. And some people said Ohio State, who finished 3rd, who would go on to beat Clemson. My family's like Ohio State fans. My mom is. So I like to defend them a little bit. Now, Mond would finish the season with 2,282 passing yards, 19 passing touchdowns, and only 3 interceptions. I was wondering, what happened to his numbers? Because sophomore season, he threw for 3,107 passing yards and 24 touchdowns. Junior year, he threw for 2,897 yards and 20 touchdowns. It turns out that he did play 3 less games this year than normal, but also looking at his passing attempts, I think there was a change to the offense because he averaged 417 passing attempts during his middle 2 seasons, being 415 in his sophomore year and 419 coming in his junior year. He would only throw the ball 297 times this season. Now, Mond does have some serious upside to his game. He's got a wide variety of skill set. For starters, he has more than adequate arm strength. When he steps into his throws, he gets great velocity behind the ball, so he can fit it into all these tight windows. The spirals are tight and don't wobble often. They stay on target. His throwing motion is very compact. He doesn't have a big launch up and really throw it. He stays tight with his throws. That's a good and a bad thing. A good thing because it doesn't have as much time to sit there and wait or for a defender to come up and knock the ball out. But I think what he wants to do is spend an offseason loosening up his throwing motion just a little bit to where he can get the arm strength and his velocity to equal a elite pro level. Now, Aaron Rodgers said in an interview with Pat McAfee, he does that every Tuesday. I think those are dope. That he spent an offseason once, I think it was his sophomore year, switching up his throwing motion. And it took a while to get used to, but when he did, he said it helped his game greatly. He's shown that he has this great running ability to his game too. Now, he doesn't possess the type of running ability where he'll take off on a 60-yard touchdown or that his running is the first option of his game. But he does have sufficient enough athletic ability to pick up that third, 6 and 7 to go and pick up that first down. His running ability is on full display when he escapes the pocket and throws on the run, which is also shown to be a strong part of his game. He doesn't lose much accuracy or efficiency when moving and throwing. He's got great poise in the pocket. He always stands. Although he stands on the smaller side of things when looking at quarterbacks at 6'2", I think he's more like 6'1", and a slimmer built 217. He will still step up in the pocket often and stay there until he finds a receiver. I did notice he was not afraid to take a hit. I mean, he will stand in that pocket the entire time. And the majority of the time, he'll often take a huge hit while getting the ball out last second. He does get the ball out, though. There are some times, I'll get into that here in a minute, um, that this could be a slightly worrisome thing because edge rushers in the pros will get there faster than they do in college. Um, so he can't be accustomed to the time that he was given at Texas A&M. He needs to adapt to the amount of time that he'll have in the NFL. Last positive I'm going to go with, he's got a ton of experience. He's played in a total of 46 college football games as a starter, and if that's not the most, it's one of the most games played by a quarterback prospect in this year's draft. He's been doing it since his freshman year, 18 years old, playing tough competition out of the SEC. Now, on parts of Mond's game that need refining. The first is going to be his consistency. There are times that he'll have pinpoint throws one drive, hitting every receiver in the numbers in stride, and the next drive he comes out and starts throwing the ball right into traffic and just off target every single pass. He did work on it in the 2020 season, looking at his interception numbers. They would drop from 9 those past 2 seasons to 3 this year. But he still has time where he will just, there are times that this year where he just fell off a cliff, like right after showing extreme promise. The next thing is going to be his accuracy, which is the most inconsistent part of his game. Back to like the consistency too. Mond's short to medium range accuracy is good, but not great, and his deep accuracy just isn't there. He doesn't have a lot of touch on his throws, having the majority of his deep balls being overthrown or just too high for his receivers. I think if he does spend some time working on his throwing motion, he will start to get that touch on the ball and not have to just rely on his arm strength. There are times his accuracy dips when throwing because he's praying those receivers will bail him out on a 50-50 ball, and it just doesn't work out. Now, I also want to get into Senior Bowl. He played great. I just said like his throwing motion and everything, and there are games like you can't just analyze a quarterback on one game. I like to do about 4 to 5 games, really check him out. Especially, I like to do what I like to do is I want to watch one game from say their sophomore season or their junior season, depending on what year they had this year, and I want to look at how they do and what did they develop in the offseason into their 2020 season as a starter. Kellen Mond during the Senior Bowl had an amazing game, accuracy, short range, medium range, and deep range. He hit every throw, and he just looked great. So. Although I still think that throwing motion is still compact, he has some things to work on, but he looked a lot better than what my analysis says. Now, the pro comparison here, very obvious. Majority of scouts and analysts have the same guy for Kellen Mond. That's going to be former Tennessee quarterback Joshua Dobbs. Coming out college, Dobbs was known for his poise, quick release, strong arm, and his throwing ability on the run. But the things that he had to work on was his consistency, decision-making, and his overall accuracy, especially on the deep balls. It's a perfect fit when comparing the two. I do believe that Kellen Mond has the upper hand here because it seems to me that he has spent more time working on his accuracy and his decision-making for his senior year, and it showed really well in the Senior Bowl. I also think that he has a much higher upside than what Joshua Dobbs provided, who I believe is back up on the Jaguars right now. He got selected by the Pittsburgh Steelers in like the 4th round, traded, and I think he's back up on Jaguars. Or he might be back on the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think Jaguars might release him. For the draft, I don't think Mond comes in his first year and competes for the starting job just yet. I think they're going to find a quality team that's going to give him a chance to develop behind and possibly take over the next year. Something like Dak Prescott did with Tony Romo a few years ago. They also have somewhat similar play styles. The team that I'm going with is going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And that's going to be, actually, originally I had round 3 or 4, and I think he moved his stock all the way up to round 2. I think he'll be the 6th quarterback taken off the board, move Kyle Trask back, and we'll have Kellen Mond go 6th quarterback. But yeah, what better quarterback to learn behind than the best of all time, Tom Brady. Perfect fit. Quarterback number 9. Honestly, I'll probably still sit here for 9, keep Jamie Newman at 8, and Kyle Trask at 7, but I have Sam Ehlinger out of Texas. This man is so hated on. I don't know. Maybe it's because like the whole "we're back" thing after they won the Sugar Bowl versus Georgia in 2018. They went on to not play so well in 2019 and 2020. Maybe it's just because he plays for the Texas Longhorns, Hook 'em Horns. I'm not a Texas fan. I just thought I'd do it. Maybe it's because his play style is being carried by the Texas Longhorns' simple offensive scheme. I don't know. I just don't know why people don't enjoy his game. For starters, his stats are pretty impressive. He's been a starter since week 2 of his freshman year, and in the 2020 campaign, Ehlinger would throw for 2,566 yards, 26 touchdowns, and only 5 receptions. He would also have 377 rushing yards, 8 rushing touchdowns, and this included 4 of his rushing touchdowns coming in a 53-45 loss to Oklahoma in Week 4, the Red River game. Is that not the Red River? Listen, I'm like an hour and a half in recording. I might be completely off. For some reason, I think that's the Red River game. It might not be. I'm pretty sure Texas versus Oklahoma is the Red River game. Well, this year he did lead Texas to a 7-3 record. But I think there's a lot to like in Sam's game, but there's even more to be desired. But first, let's check out again what he does impressive. First, like the majority of the rest of the draft class, Sam has a great athletic running ability. He can take off with the pocket. He can take off when the pocket starts to collapse. He makes really quick cuts when he's in the open field. What scouts would consider a true dual threat quarterback because his running ability is about the same quality as his passing ability. Another piece of his running game is that he's not afraid to take a hit. When he's going for a first down, he will put his head down and run over a defender if that's what it takes to pick up that extra yard. Passing-wise, there's definitely work to do, but there are some bright spots. One is that he knows when to get the ball out of the pocket in the majority of the time. He will not wait till last second to get the ball out. Sometimes, but when he's able to sense, I don't know what I'm looking at. He is able to, when sensing pressure, get the ball out of the pocket. There are times that he doesn't, because he doesn't see the pressure coming, something I'll get into a little bit. It's one of his weaknesses. But when he is able to sense pressure, he does know when to tuck it and run it, or just get the ball out of his hands. His pump fakes are rather good, something that I was really impressed by watching a few of his games. He's able to get defenders to bite and allows receivers to get open. It's just a question on whether he's going to hit the receiver or not. More likely to not. While in the pocket, Sam's maneuvers really well and avoids defenders extremely well. You get a feeling like you're watching Johnny Manziel on a few of these plays where he avoids the defenders, either steps up in the pocket or rolls out, makes a great play just to get out of the way from the defenders. And something he has shown to be one of his top skills. The final positive that I did notice, it didn't really have to do anything with his playing ability, but rather his character. He's a great leader. He had the entire Texas team and coaching staff behind him ever since taking over in that week 2 of freshman year, and I think it worked out pretty well for them. It seems as if the entire Longhorn fan base likes him too. I don't know why nobody else does. Maybe I think it's because of his play style, but now, as I said earlier, there's a lot for Sam's game to work on if he wants to translate to the pros, and I mean a lot. Let's start out with the most obvious things he has to work on, and that's going to be his accuracy and arm strength. They're pretty much like locked together when talking about quarterbacks. If they don't have the accuracy, it could be because of their arm strength. They don't have the arm strength, they won't have accuracy. Now, Ehlinger throws are often off target, and the majority of his yards come from dump off like routes, really quick throws on like 5 yards or less. And his wide receiver makes a play. Now, his deep balls are all nearly overthrown, only connecting on a few of those throws at 30 yards plus through the airtime this year. When throwing deep, passes that do have 10 yards plus of airtime is often that his receiving option is like wide open when he does complete the pass. Defenders not being within 5 yards is most common. Sam struggles greatly when throwing into traffic or into tight windows, often resulting in passes being off target. I think something I did notice is he likes to try to edge the ball out away from the defender. He wants to avoid the interception. That's pretty much it. And it often leads to off target throws. Sometimes you got to throw it to where both of them can get it, but you trust your receiver to have a better chance of catching the ball. Another accuracy struggle is going to be a throw on the run. His running ability is great, but that doesn't translate to when he throws the ball on the run or when he's on the move. Most of the time, he's nowhere near his receiving option when throwing while on the move. Now, a few of the problems can be attested to the same thing. It's his subpar arm strength. In comparison to the rest of the class, Ehlinger is near the bottom when looking into throwing ability and putting velocity behind his throws. He doesn't get the ball fast enough to the receivers, so defenders do have a chance to make a play on it often. Sam also struggles when recognizing the blitz and just recognizing blitz packages. I said this earlier. Although he's good, again, getting the ball out when average pass rush is on him, when no extra defenders being sent, so really just 4 defenders coming in on him. He often forgets his basic mechanics and most commonly ends up with him being sacked when there are a few blitzes. Now, his footwork completely falls apart, and he doesn't scan the field the same way that he usually does. when given time. That's also a very impressive part of his game, is he scans the field very well when he has time in the pocket. All goes away as soon as there's a few defenders in his face. For comparison, I'm going to go with a faster, slimmer built Tim Tebow. Could have went with Johnny Manziel. I think Johnny Manziel had a rocket of an arm. Helps because he played baseball, but that's the only reason I'm not going to go with him, but rather Tim Tebow. Comparison, Tebow stands in at 6'3", 240, while Sam is 6'3", 225. Both were considered true dual-threat quarterbacks, throwing and running ability around the same quality. Both were known for their leadership and it just being like off the charts as being a great leader. But primarily, they were known for their passing ability being a critique of their game and their arm strength needing a lot of work. Tim Tebow was, especially his throwing motion, was just horrible. For the draft, I don't expect Ehlinger to be taken off the board until the 5th or 6th round. When a team takes him, I expect them to do two things. The first is going to be solidify the fact, hey, Sam, you're a backup quarterback at best. The second thing, I think they're going to turn him into a Taysom Hill gadget player. For that reason, I'm going to go with, and I'm going to keep this reason, even though they just traded for Matthew Stafford, I'm going to give the Los Angeles Rams Sam Ehlinger because of the whole gadget player. I said I think Jared Goff will be traded this offseason, so they're going to be looking for at least a backup, whether it's John Wolford or someone else, that being Sam Ehlinger. But I think giving young Sean McVay, this offensive genius, a gadget player like Taysom Hill, someone that can do everything on the field, which is pretty much what Sam can do. He's going to do wonders with him. It's going to be amazing. I just really hope he goes to the Rams. Number 10. Here it is, last quarterback prospect. Now, my number 10, it's not anybody else's number 10, I'll tell you that. This is my wild card pick, my way out in left field. I'm going to go with quarterback Malik Cunningham out of the University of Louisville. Now, there are a few players that skill sets will translate better to the pros than Malik Cunningham's will, such as like Peyton Ramsey out of Northwestern or Brock Purdy out of Iowa State. But I wanted this pick to be someone who's a long shot but really has the talent. That's why I'm going with dual threat quarterback Malik Cunningham. If I'm being honest, I wasn't even too sure if Cunningham was going to enter the draft this year. It was a little questionable with the research I did. So, like, on Twitter, he would say stuff like, can't believe another one's leaving me from Louisville. But he did say it to, like, all the seniors at the Senior Bowl. I think that's what he was talking about. From other signs I saw, he is entering the draft. I personally didn't watch much Louisville football this year, and there's a very solid reason why. They weren't good. I wasn't going to waste my time watching a bad football team. Cardinals will go 4-7 this year in an average at best ACC. They had a few close ones. 5-point loss to Notre Dame, 3-point loss to 21-ranked Pitt. And actually, when I was looking at their games, they were a lot closer than I thought. 7-point loss here, 14-point loss there. Maybe I'm just not giving that team enough credit. Maybe they were a little bit good. The record doesn't say that. 4-7 is not that good. For Cunningham's stats, they could have definitely looked better if he wanted to really jolt his draft stock up. A quick look at his 2019 stats showed 20 touchdowns and 5 picks, pretty good ratio, and 6 rushing touchdowns on the ground. That was his 2019 year. That was his first year as a starter at quarterback. In 2018, Louisville just used him to really run the ball. Something that I will end up talking about later is ability to run the ball. Very impressive. Second full year as a starter, Cunningham would throw for 2,617 yards, 20 passing touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. Not as good as a ratio as he would want or what he put up in his sophomore year, but he makes up for what he can do on the ground. Cunningham would have 609 rushing yards and 17 touchdowns, including a 197-yard game against in a 31-17 loss to Virginia. So now to look at the most impressive piece of the game, that's going to be his running ability at quarterback. I do say that because I believe that Cunningham is a quarterback who doesn't look to run or take off. He's not a runner looking to throw. He's a quarterback who can take off when he needs to. But what he can do on the ground is amazing. Cunningham does have a little bit of Lamar Jackson in him. He's got that really quick on his feet, blazing sideline to sideline speed. He can cut on a dime. But he doesn't have that top gear that Lamar has, but no one has that at the quarterback position. His athletic ability is off the charts. It's easily one of the best when it comes to the draft. Another impressive piece of Cunningham's game is going to be his on-the-run accuracy. At times, while not on the move, Cunningham will miss wide-open targets and underthrows receivers here and there, but when he's on the move, he's one of the best in the class. He can hit players in stride and can throw it into tight windows while scrambling. And he uses momentum while he's running, so like to thrust his hips into it to put more behind the balls. And he could struggle sometimes getting velocity there, but not really while he's throwing on the run. The final positive I'll look at is his ability in the pocket, something that I think it's underrated in this game. For a quarterback known for his running ability, he's been impressive in the pocket. While in the pocket, he is constantly scanning the field, keeping an eye on the receivers and the defenders at all time. He struggles at recognizing blitzes, but when he does, he makes good decisions on what to do with the ball, whether to scramble, to throw it away, or just hit the safety route in his check down. Now, he isn't the perfect quarterback, and let's just say he's pretty far from it. There's a reason why scouts either have him going in the 7th round or being completely undrafted. For starters, his accuracy isn't pro-ready. He can be efficient when it comes to short and medium routes, most likely because that's all he really threw at Louisville. They'd run like 100 RPOs a game in Louisville. Nothing he can control. That's just Louisville's offense. His deep ball has shown promise, but in general, from short to deep, there's work that needs to be done. He rarely overthrows his target, but rather underthrows them, and this can be attested to his less than desirable arm strength. It's not that he can't unload it deep, because he can. 50 yards plus in the air wasn't really a problem for him in college, but it's just that the time that the ball gets there, every defender on the field and their mom will be ready to intercept it. He just puts, since the ball speed and the velocity behind the throws is below average, he puts a large arc on his throws, and it just gives more time for the defense to get to there. Now, his throws while being pressured are just not there. It all starts with how well you recognize pressure and how, like, you can see when defenders are coming, and that's a skill that Cunningham struggles at. When pressure comes and he doesn't see it, he can't use his legs to maneuver, and he begins to panic, and there's just a huge drop-off in his passer rating when the defense gets to him. For comparison, there aren't many players that play like him, so I'll have to go with either Lamar Jackson or Robert Griffin III. I don't think Cunningham's passing ability is as good as either of the two comparisons when they left college, or really his game in general, but the dual threat ability just makes you think of those two. I'd probably go more to Robert Griffin III rather than Jackson because of the similar sizes. Griffin stands at 6'2", 210, and Cunningham is 6'1", 200. Plus, I just think Lamar Jackson's game is just, it's not comparable. There's no one else that plays identical to Lamar Jackson. Now, to where I think Cunningham will go in the draft. This is hard because I don't really know. What I do know is it's going to be a late pick, somewhere in the realm of 6th to 7th round. But hey, he can be that diamond in the rough that people are looking for. If he does end up getting drafted, I'll go with the Arizona Cardinals, I guess. You get Kyler Murray, a young backup who plays similar with the running ability. Now, if he doesn't get drafted, I 110% guarantee he will be on the Baltimore Ravens practice squad 30 minutes after the draft. Just like how Tyler Huntley was last year coming out of Utah State, yeah. The Ravens like to play this game where take away quarterbacks that play like Lamar Jackson so other teams can't game plan around him. You can see RG3, McSwirly, or Tyler Huntley. The Ravens need a new practice squad quarterback because they've elevated Tyler Huntley to the roster and released Robert Griffin III. And I think they, with the connections through Lamar Jackson with Louisville, who Lamar Jackson was there his 2017 season. Malik Cunningham didn't play in 2017, but he was at Louisville. He redshirted, so he did know Lamar Jackson through the quarterback room. I think that's where Cunningham ends up if he goes undrafted. Now, those are my top 10 quarterbacks. Back in episode 1, I guess it's probably the same as the episodes, so I'll probably just put them all together. I did say that I'll be breaking down probably 5 running backs, maybe 10. I don't know. This took a while to do. Each quarterback took about 2-3 hours of game film, including 2-3 hours of like what I thought they had to work on in like pro comparison. So probably about a 40-hour project. But I'm glad I got it done. I think it's really good. I can't wait to do the rest of the positions. If you enjoy these videos, like, subscribe, and let me know what else I should work on. Have a good one.